Hello all. Thank you for listening to this Vampire the Masquerade 20th edition podcast of the Giovanni Chronicles. My name is Procyon, and I am the storyteller for these vampires. In the last session, unfortunately, we had some technical difficulties, and the recording of that session was lost. To catch everyone up, one of the players had a good idea. In place of our normal session, we're going to have the characters describe what happened in their own words. To begin, I will start with the Toreador Conspirator, Sire Wenceslas. While these rooms are spacious, it is bothersome Hardstaff and forces managed to find us and drive us off. I was expecting my impromptu childer to be slain at the manse. I will admit, it is impressive she survived. While she's naive and foolish, her survival's quite the art. I know Claudia said they could be useful if we could turn them to our side, but I'm not so sure. What's that? I hear people coming. Suava and two of the other childer. Well, okay. Come in, let's see what she wants. Oh, she wants to know more about our clan. Well, of course she'd be curious. I have to wonder how she found out about our clan weakness. She wants to know mine, does she? Well, I won't tell her that, but I will at least give her some sincere advice from a sire to a child. Never reveal your specific taste to another rose or another kindred. So she wants a lesson in presence, does she? Well then, she'll experience a much stronger lesson than she did at the manse. She'll experience the feeling of blood bond. She tries to resist. How quaint. The knight, I can tell, could not resist, but the other one. Valdemar's child, I believe, being impudent. Oh, they wish to leave, eh? Very well. She's learned her place beneath me, so go ahead and take the knight. But I'm sure his sire, whoever they were, will not appreciate my training him for his defense. Wait. Now the knight's busted in here. Looks like he's frenzying? Wait. Marchettis' child. Brujah. Of course. Very well. I'll have to drain him. Wait. Damn these shadows. They're restraining me. I'll just use my presence on the Lasombra again. Damn. Continuing to resist. Again. Oh no. The rabble. Damn. Well played, child. Sire Wenceslas meant quite the grisly demise at the hands of Lucen as Suava got to enjoy the show and get her revenge. The coterie ran from the hotel the next night as soon as they could and headed toward the ministry of St. Tzimisce, unknowingly falling into a trap set by someone they've seen before, the monk, Brother Clement. I told ye to shun the lands of the dead. Now ye have partaken of their evil. Ye would not heed the voice of the righteous, and now ye be damned. Fire your lighted arrows, my Templar allies. Use the training you were given by the Inquisition in Rome. Purify the evil. Our faith is effective on these monsters, but wait. One of them, he cuts down my men like wheat. We will overcome this evil with the power of God. One runs into the forest, but her evil kills all the plants around her. Stop the evil, my Templars! Wait, what's that? One of them has ensnared a wolf somehow and turned it on us. No, one of my loyal men has fallen for one of their evil tricks and turned against us. Wait, what's that? Monsters have somehow summoned darkness. Oh no, monster pretending to be a knight has closed in on me. I'll stop the evil! He didn't. Brother Clement and his Templars met a brutal death at the hands of the coterie. Well, while their faith wasn't enough to destroy them, it certainly did leave a mark on several of them.
This is Bleyd, playing as Lucen Hayes. Recapping Session 5. With day fast approaching, the conspirators retire to their rooms, leaving us alone in the commons. Or at least it appears so, but we thought we were alone before. only to discover they were sitting there the whole time. I take a moment to very carefully check the place to make sure nobody is hiding in plain sight before turning to my allies to discuss our next move. I propose that we send Rodergio back to the Founders during the day with a message outlining what we've learned, but Sasha is strongly opposed, believing that Rodergio is being watched and will be killed if he leaves. Alonso doesn't even want to contact the Founders at all, believing they're no better than the conspirators. He does make a good point that stopping Japheth Cappadocius may be a more pressing concern, so I relent and we table the decision until the letter to Japheth is delivered. However, with the conspirators in their separate rooms, the last hour before dawn would make an ideal opportunity to take out one of them with relative safety. My first thought is Marchetus, but my grievance with him is too personal. Suava suggests her sire, Wenceslas, the despicable creature who tortured and controlled her during the banquet. Justice surely demands his death, so I agree. According to Suava, kindred of his ilk tend to get pleasure from watching beautiful things and can become entranced by them. Suava clearly fits the part, so it is decided that she try to distract him with a song or a poem. Ideally, with his attention on her, Alonso would be able to use his shadows to bind Wenceslas so that I could strike him down. Sasha and Nico are to remain in the hallway to keep an eye out for possible witnesses and turn them away if necessary. I spend the next few minutes using a dagger to whittle the butt of my spear into a sharp point that I can use as a stake to make the task easier. Alas, we make the mistake of approaching the door together, and Wenceslas hears more than one set of footsteps. He invites all of us inside his spacious room, though Sasha and Nico retreat to their own instead. Smart of them. Cautiously, Alonso and I take seats by a small table in his room, while Suava explains her purpose for calling upon Wenceslas. Alonso interjects that we were also interested in hearing her performance, and I nod in agreement. Wait, what were we doing here again? Why am I in the presence of such a magnificent man as this Wenceslas? Truly, he is a lord worth devoting my life to serving. Would that I had the talent of Suava to perform for him myself. But I suppose the strength of my arms will have to suffice. Suddenly, for some reason, Alonso is grabbing my wrist and dragging me out of the room. Huh? As soon as I'm out of the room and the door closes, everything changes. That thing in there was controlling my mind. I can feel the anger boiling over as I am filled with shame over the thoughts of what that were forced into my head. The next thing I know, I'm standing back in Wenceslas's room, breathing hard, my arms covered in blood, a small pile of ash in front of me. I feel a faint memory of striking with my spear with such ferocity that my arms ache. There is a faint taste of sweet blood in my mouth. Not my own. I can piece together what must have happened, and it doesn't sit well with me that I lost control of myself in a frenzy. But the job is done, so we can quickly retreat to our own rooms. Morning is fast approaching, but I cannot sleep yet. Not clean enough. The wash basin in the room allows me to clean the blood from my arms, and my clothes are remarkably unstained from the experience. But I still feel the blood there. Remove my clothes and scrub myself as much as I can, but it doesn't help. I can see that the blood is gone from my hands, but I still feel it there. I remind myself that Wenceslas was no man, but a monster. I would have slain him even had I been in control of myself, and it would have been justified. I was protecting Suava's honor, not just my own. With that in my mind, my hands at last feel clean enough, and I fall asleep mere moments before the sun rises. The next evening, we all awaken just after sundown. None of the conspirators seem to have risen yet, and we decided it's better to leave before they do. No need to risk unfortunate questions just yet. Rodegio is ready to drive our coach towards Cappadocius, so we pile inside and depart. As we travel down the roadway, Suava and Alonso recount the events with Wenceslas the previous night. Apparently, I struck him down with a single strike and drank him to dust. I still barely remember anything more than sensations, but the thought frightens me. If I could do that to one of them, I could do that to someone who doesn't deserve it. If I lose control of myself, either to my own anger or to the will of another, I might become a serious threat to those around me. I must be more careful in the future. My thoughts are interrupted when the carriage is suddenly struck by flaming arrows from the woods alongside the road. Men in monk robes surround our coach, and a familiar voice issues from the road in front of us. It calls us Hellspawn, and says that he tried to warn us away from Giovanni. It's that man who kept spitting on the floor in the inn when I first met my allies. I never did get to follow up on my threat if he'd spit on the floor one last time. Perhaps I am being given a chance to see justice done. The attackers try hurling rocks at us, which are surprisingly painful. But before I can get out of the coach, Suava darts out and runs into the woods, presumably as a distraction. Oddly, the plants seem to wither and die as she passes. I hadn't noticed that before. Anyway, I take advantage of the confusion she causes and dispatch the 3 assailants before me. I can hear the sounds of a scuffle on the other side of the coach, and what I think is the snarl of a wolf. Odd that a wolf would approach this many people. Suava reaches the monk in the road first and stabs him with a small sword, but he seems unfazed. Instead, his face shows a crazed look filled with zeal as he continues to condemn us as Hellspawn. I join Suava before him, but first strike the ground at his feet to remind him of the innkeeper's floor that he continually sullied. I'm not sure he even remembers, as I end his life in an instant later. As I turn back to the coach, I can see a large cloud of shadow on the other side, where I hear the sounds of more attackers. Guided by my ears and instincts, I hurl my spear into the darkness with full force. Apparently, my strike is truer than I could have imagined, as Alonso laughs and cheers, declaring that I had struck down all 3 of the enemies enshrouded in his shadows. Clearly, if God exists, he was not on their side this night.
On the night that we made it to the shady inn that we believed Lothar to be in, but was actually containing our sires and their accomplices in the aberrant vampire activities that are happening, that we've been sent by Hardstadt to stop, we have agreed to a uneasy alliance with our sires as double agents. Some of us need to learn knowledge from our sires. I believe I have things to learn from my sire Valdemar. I believe that Tremere believes they are, and the Tzimisce believe that they can learn things from their sires, but we were here to destroy this cabal of traitors, and we know that if we can take them off one by one, it might be a better idea. So we've decided between the Sire or Wenceslas, and after debating back and forth which one was the worst person, Wenceslas was decided that we were going to attack him. The main thrust of our attack be, of course, Lucen. He has the strength of 10 men and can destroy people in one blow. I would support him in his attack, hopefully using my shadows to weaken Wenceslas enough to let Lucen go in for the final strike. The plan also involves Svava confusing or distracting Wenceslas with the other members of our group, I guess you would call it, backing each other up and hoping that we can confuse and distract and destroy Wenceslas. Our plan was almost immediately destroyed by the fact that we did not realize that Wenceslas could hear us coming up. He then used his powers of status to force Lucen and I, as well as Svava, to come into his room right before sunset. We probably should have never entered that room, but to keep the charade going and maybe seize an opportunity to attack him, we went in. Svava asked about the powers that the Toreador have, and Wenceslas decided to use that opportunity to use his powers on all three of us. Thankfully, the powers didn't seem to have much of an effect on me, and they had intermittent effects on Svava. Lucen, on the other hand, was confused. He was enamored with Wenceslas, and I realized then that the plan as we had originally made it up was not going to work. I needed to do everything I could to get Lucen out of that room so that we would all be okay. I was able to withstand the powers of Wenceslas enough to get Lucen out of the room. I threw a few barbs Wenceslas's way as we left to try to incite some kind of rage in him, maybe, but it didn't work. Svava, I hoped, could get herself out, but as we left the room, Lucen flew into a rage because the effects seemed to lessen on him, and he realized that he had just been greatly insulted by his own form of honor. As Lucen ran back into the room, I didn't know what to do. I just thought, we're back onto the original plan, so I decided to use my shadow powers to try to grab Wenceslas and hold him there as he was attacked. As the things unfolded in front of me, I realized that as I grabbed him, Wenceslas looked at me. I was feeling a great love for Wenceslas. I thought I should possibly drop him and save him and protect him, but that is when Lucen came in and destroyed Wenceslas in one strike. Very nearly destroyed, rather. He was still barely functioning. But then Lucen's rage didn't stop, and he destroyed Wenceslas right there. We realized the sun was coming up right then, and Svava had moved thankfully out of the way and not been hurt by Lucen's attack. We hid as much evidence as we could and ran back to our rooms and tried to wake up as quickly as possible the next night so that we could run to meet this Cappadocian fellow so that we could set up the meeting that Giovanni wanted us to set up. It's all becoming very confusing. Who should we trust? Why should we trust them? But we went on our way knowing that we at least had to set up the possibility that Giovanni would meet the Cappadocian so that Hardstadt could at some point then double-cross them or cross them, I don't know. But on our way to there, we were accosted by a bunch of religious fanatics, one of whom Lucen had done great emotional violence to. They threw rocks at us, but they burned like fire. It was terrible. Thankfully, after some of us, including myself, got a good shot on some of these religious fanatics, Lucen was able to get out of our carriage and destroy them with his great physical powers. We didn't get all of them in that first volley, but I knew we needed to protect ourselves, so I put up a giant ball of shadow. I ripped the fabric of reality, and the entire abyss poured out and blinded everyone and sucked away their life force. And after Lucen destroyed their leader, the one he threw out of the bar in days before when we were still alive, he was able to destroy the last three with one spear throw, and aided by the fact that I had them cloaked in shadows. I dropped the shadow curtain, making sure to not scare anyone else of my immense powers. And that's what happened.
After our discussion with our sires, we met and discussed the current plan of action going forward. We spoke in hushed tones as to not earn the ire of the other conspirators. We talked at length about certain things until the question was posed about which one we should target. However, Suava's desire to see her sire dead burned greatly, and I couldn't help but recommend that we start with him. However, seeing how he was of the Clan of the Rose, it made me hesitant to see how this would go, especially since it was beginning to feel like Suava, Alonso, and Lucen wanted to go after him that very same night we discussed this. Sadly, with the way me and Sasha's gifts were, as of this moment, we had nothing to contribute in terms of helping them. At least, for me, my issue is I can only get close up to someone and then use my power, and morph their flesh to my desire. Regardless, as the other three carried on with the plan, me and Sasha headed to our rooms. Of course, by the time Wenceslas answered on the other side of the door, I was already pressing my ear, trying to listen from my room. I tried using my enhanced senses, trying to focus on what was being said and how it was going. I heard some murmuring, then hushed footsteps going to the door, and then afterwards Lucen screaming, and then more murmurs and footsteps followed by silence. I heard all of them exit the room before I went into day sleep, relieved that they may have succeeded. The next night, as we got into the carriage very early, I couldn't help but notice Lucien's attire. At least part of it looked like there was a mess, some of it being drenched in blood. And then when I looked over to Suava, I saw nothing but a big smile on her face. And then, of course, they ended up telling us what happened. And, to my surprise and relief, I'm glad that we got that aspect of our job done. As we recounted more of our assignment from Hardestadt, seeing if there was a possibility to get some word to him about the conspiracy members and how this whole aspect with Japheth was going, I used this moment to commune with the spirit, the one who cycled between young, middle-aged, and old crone. Deep in my heart, I knew who this was. She was there when I was worshipping her when I was alive, and she came to me when I was in that cell the night we returned, and held by Hardestadt, my goddess. At least in some part, I believe this to be her. So I asked for her advice. Again, she uttered a word of playing along and learning what I can before having to make a difficult choice. Sadly, before I could ask for more answers, our way was blocked by religious fanatics of the man-made god. I spit on these men. I'll forever hate the men of this god that burned away our idols, usurped our festive times of the year, and used their deception to control the masses to engage in their own pleasure. Hypocrites, all of them. The fact that all of them blocked our way, and the sound of the familiar priest, the one that warned us of the events to come, I didn't like him in life, nor do I like him in death, and honestly, I've had enough of the priesthood spouting utter fucking nonsense. I quickly looked outside, meeting eye contact with a wolf who I saw in the forest. I felt I was able to yield and have it obey me. Finally, some progress. The wolf was ready to pounce, but as it was, Suava was able to run at intense speed into the forest. In my distraction of this whizzing display, I was hit with a rock that burned like fire. I was beginning to get increasingly annoyed, but luckily Lucen, once more, took care of our captors on one side of the carriage. It gave me enough time to see him cut a swath and leave a blood trail in his wake. Alonso, for his part, unleashed a fog from this abyss that he never shuts up about on the other side of the carriage, obscuring some of the men. Sasha was able to make some use of his own abilities and commanded one of them to attack the other. I just heard the commotion of the wolf ripping into one of the men and the conflict that ensued. After some time, and with the death of the foolish priest, fucking serves him right, the abyss fog disappeared, and soon I ran over to the wolf, with who became my companion. I fed this animal some of my blood, hoping to cement some kind of kinship with it while I scoured for some herbs. I searched high and low and couldn't find anything. I had this weird feeling I would be needing these kinds of herbs soon. They are a plant related to Hecate, said to induce dreams and visions while wide awake. I know they are in the surrounding forest, but with my skills, I'm beginning to feel inadequate on this journey. I don't have the abyss that Alonso has, nor do I have the commanding powers and the potential blood magic of Sasha, nor do I have the charm and the dizzying speed of Suava or the brutish strength of Lucen. I'm wondering, am I more of a burden on this journey more than anything? Maybe they can get away with this while I just go my own way. I don't fucking know anymore. But they are the only people that I can really, truly, perhaps confide in. We were all embraced together, and we all stuck with each other. I mean, not like we had much choice in that matter, but still. The fact that we all bonded from our mutual suffering and hatred for this conspiracy. I hope that maybe as eternity goes and as the years go by, hopefully we can have some type of connections with each other. But we will see. For now, we head to Japheth, and from there, we will see what happens this night.
And that's where we'll end tonight's episode of the Giovanni Chronicles The Last Supper. I'd like to thank all my players for playing, and I'd like to thank all of you for listening, and we hope you'll join us again next time as our coterie continue to struggle with the repercussions of the worst dinner party they've ever been to.